All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, friends, you may recall back before the election, back when a $1.8 trillion deal was on the table, something quite noteworthy occurred. Wolf Blitzer dared to give Nancy Pelosi an actually tough interview.
Yesterday, I spoke to Andrew Yang, who says the same thing. It's not everything you want,
but you know
but
what?
There's a lot there.
Honest to God, you really, I can't get over it, because Andrew Yang, he's lovely. Ro Khanna, he's lovely. They are not negotiating this situation. They have no idea of the particulars. They have no idea of what the language is here. I didn't come over here to have, so you're the apologist for the Obama, excuse me. God forbid.
Madam Speaker, I'm not an apologist.
Obama.
I'm asking you serious questions because so many people are in desperate need right now.
We'll leave it on the vote that you are not right on this, Wolf, and I hate to say that to you. But I feel confident about it, and I feel confident about my colleagues, and I feel confident in my chairs.
And it's not about me. It's about millions of Americans who can't put food on the table, who can't pay the rent.
And we represent them. And we represent them.
Getting by these long food lines that we're seeing. I know you are. We know them. I'm just saying.
We represent them, and we know them.
As we say.
We know them. We represent them.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as they say here in Washington.
It is nowhere near perfect.
Madam Speaker.
Always the case, but we're not even close to the good.
Pelosi there gave one of the most heartless and contempt-filled TV appearances I have ever seen. And yet, for a bunch of blue-check liberals, it was Wolf Blitzer who was in the wrong. Keith Olbermann, as one example, tweeted, "Sorry, this is beyond embarrassing, Wolf Blitzer. You owe Speaker Pelosi and your audience an apology." I'm sorry, what? But don't worry, since Blitzer's courageous performance, the media has gotten their talking points together as to why it's absolutely not the fault of Democratic leadership that the American people have been left in such dire straits as we face down the worst stretch of the pandemic yet. No, no, no. The courageous, valiant Democrats are always amazing. Perfect, really. It's only the big bad Republicans who screw everything up. Of course, the truth, which you all know, is that almost literally everyone is to blame and completely complicit through either cowardice or calculus in what is a truly unforgivable state of affairs. But an incredible, and I don't mean that in a good way, analysis on CNN really takes the cake for out-of-touch, shameless water carrying for Democratic leadership. First, remember the context here. Mnuchin put a $1.8 trillion deal on the table before the election, far from perfect, but did include some good stuff, including another full round of stimulus checks and some unemployment plus-up. Pelosi played a bunch of games, pretending like she was negotiating when she was really just running out the clock, making a political calculation that not doing any deal would be better optics for Democrats. Consequences be damned. Of course, it was no guarantee that Senate Republicans would have passed that bill, but the fact of the matter is, they never had the chance to pass or to reject it. So now that the election is over, Pelosi's political calculation has changed, and she actually sort of outright admitted that in an astonishing exchange.
Joe Biden committed to ending and crushing the virus and having a Build a Better America initiative, Build Back Better, a vaccine, answer to our prayers, an answer to our prayers of 95% effectiveness in terms of Pfizer and Moderna, and there may be others coming forward. That is a total game changer. A new president and a vaccine. So there's nothing to, these are different. What was then before was not more of this. This has simplicity. It's what we've had in our bills. It's for a shorter period of time, but that's okay now because we have a new president.
So you got that, right? Pelosi's line, seriously, is that now that Biden's elected and the vaccine is coming, they don't really need all that much stimulus after all. Let's be clear, this is utter lunacy. Outside of brunch liberals and the Neera Tandons of the world, no one's life got better the second that Joe Biden won the election. Here's a look at some of the 25,000 people who lined up for food distribution in Texas after Joe Biden was elected. Or consider the 12 million people we talked about yesterday who are facing a housing crisis because they owe thousands of dollars in rent with the eviction moratorium rapidly reaching an end. Or Consider the 12 million who will lose their unemployment benefits and be left high and dry without action after Christmas, or maybe the 15 million who have lost health insurance because they lost their jobs during COVID. You know, I'm sure they would love to go to brunch to celebrate this historic victory, but unfortunately, the pandemic is actually the least of their barriers to being able to do that right now. But never fear, if Nancy Pelosi says that people don't really need stimulus checks anymore, CNN's got an analyst ready to back her up. Just take a listen to CNN's lead business writer, Matt Egan.
I want to ask you about Bernie Sanders and other progressives that are not happy with this stimulus package because it does not include stimulus checks. The same actually goes for Republican Josh Hawley of Missouri. But would that idea have enough impact on the economy that it would lead to ultimately spiking this bill altogether, do you think?
Well, I think the criticism is right in the sense that this $908 billion package is not enough to get the economy through the whole pandemic. And what's interesting is, as you mentioned, it's not just from the left. We heard Senator Josh Hawley say that he told President Trump that he thinks Trump should veto the whole thing if stimulus checks are not included. But, the economists that I'm talking to, they say, listen, we don't know that stimulus checks are really needed right now. A lot of Americans would probably just save that money rather than spend it. And there's a lot of really good stuff in this package, including extending the unemployment benefits that I was talking about earlier, forgivable loans for small businesses, state and local aid from the federal government. And so, you don't want to just kill the whole bill because of that single issue.
We don't really know if stimulus checks are needed right now. People might save the money instead of spend it because, God forbid, any working class person has a savings account. Now, look, if you want to make the case, hey, something's better than nothing, sure, I feel you there. But we've already seen some movement from the pressure campaign of Bernie, Hawley, and others, so there does appear to be some opportunity to do a little bit better here without just killing the whole bill, as this well-paid propagandist here suggests. In fact, the Senate GOP wants their corporate liability shield and may just be willing to throw a few bones to the American people in exchange for it. I just really can't comprehend the level of callousness that's been on display. I mean it. It actually really gets to me. How can you be so disconnected from the reality of so many millions of Americans that you can just blithely suggest that maybe we've done enough already and people are just so flush with cash that they're just going to pad their savings account? How can you so shamelessly carry water for the Nancy Pelosi narrative when it is blatantly obvious that she screwed around with people's lives for political gain in such a stroke of strategic brilliance that she nearly lost her own House majority? This has been one of the most shameful periods in modern American legislating and in American media. And unfortunately, the only ones who will pay the price are you. And Sagar, the other thing here that has been a real sleight of hand is people have always argued against our position that, hey, Pelosi should have taken this $1.8 trillion. Yes. Oh, the Senate GOP wasn't going to go along with this. Even if you accept that position, their original offer that they put on the table back before the election was more than what is on offer now. So no matter how you slice it, even if you accept, which is certainly possible, that they wouldn't have gone along with the $1.8 trillion, you still have to face the fact that Pelosi and her master negotiator skills is leaving people with far less than what was on the table prior to the election.
No question in my mind. Let's say that she does go along with $1.8 trillion, the Senate comes in its way, and let's say they only pass $900 billion. As I pointed out, I think yesterday, $908 billion is now the upper bound of what is possible. That's the compromise solution. So the realistic probably what we're going to get is around $700. So how much does she cost people there? Maybe $200 billion. That's a lot of money, actually. You can go out and talk to people who are struggling. And who is this guy, Matt Egan? That's why I'm like, do you work for the banks or something?
Lead business writer.
Yeah, I'm a lead business writer. I promise I'm not going to curse. Somebody emailed me yesterday that they watched Rising with their kids, so I'm sorry. But look, this guy. I mean, that is just pure propaganda. There's no other way to describe it. And there's plenty of economists who completely disagree with him.
Of course.
We know, again, you can even buy neo-lib trickle-down framing, which is that whenever you have people have a lot of money, they go out and they spend it, which creates prosperity, which creates wages, it's a trickle-up economy, right? Yeah. I mean, this is actually a very basic economic principle around consumption, wages, and money. And this is what stimulus checks actually would do.
Right.
And it's not that it isn't I mean, this is a vital part of the bill. And what Hawley and Bernie are saying is, if you're going to pass around $1 trillion, don't you think some of it should at least go to average Americans? I mean, it's a novel idea. And I was talking about this with somebody the other day, which is that they were like, oh, well, politics is all give and take. And I was like, what does it tell you that there are only 2 senators out of 100 who are willing to fight for a position which is supported by 80% of the American people? Maybe even 90, honestly. If you take the 600, I bet it's 90.
Yeah.
And it's just so shocking when you look at how the political establishment here is failing. I think it's probably I used to talk about Iraq, and we talked about the financial crisis. This is the example I'm going to use from here on out about how this multidimensional failure, president, both parties, establishments, everybody worked in order to crush so many different efforts at actually doing something good for people.
And it's so instructive, the framing that the host in that segment uses too, because it's all an effort to paint like, oh, Bernie and Hawley are like these extremists, demanding these unreasonable demands, and they're willing to kill the whole bill to make sure that people get money. Can you imagine the gall? So painting them, and this is what they always do, painting that position as an extreme position. When, as you point out, it is not an extreme position. It is an overwhelming majority position, like 80-90% of the country type position. It is only an extreme position relative to what is the actual extreme position of the sort of libertarian ideology and neoliberal ideology and deficit hawkery that pervades this town. So it's only in comparison to that Bernie and Hawley here look extreme. But in terms of like the grand scheme of the American people or the grand scheme of what other countries around the world have done, not only is it not an extreme position, it's actually a right-wing position if you look in the context of how little we have ultimately done. This would be, in a different context, in a different country, this proposal would be like, that's not nearly enough. That would be like the rightmost proposal that was on offer.
No, you're completely correct. And, I just saw it. I have to go back and find it. But it's from Brianna Joy Gray. I'll check her timeline later. But she was talking about how somebody needs to go and ask Nancy Pelosi why in Australia they get X $1,000s per month, why in Denmark they get double what they get in Australia, why in the rest of Europe they get, half or whatever of that. And we're here, squabbling over one check every
$600
months. Now, how many long have been March? I don't even know. My entire sense of time is gone.
Yeah, no, you're about right.
$600, right? I mean, $600. That's like 1/5 of what people in Australia get like once a month. It's total insanity. And that's what's considered the right position, right? I mean, the leftmost position in American politics.
The extreme position.
It's totally nuts.
It's insane. All right, Sagar, looking for your radar. That's next.